And my agent's like, don't get on the plane. I got another job for you in France. So they pulled my bag off. I'm like, man, you could have waited. You know what I'm saying? Like, shoot. So yeah, he's like, man, thank God they put me through. Because if you'd have went back to the States, they wouldn't have let you try out. Like, all right. So my bag was checked to go back to the States. It was heavy enough, just light enough to go to the States. But if you're going from Poland to France, it was too heavy. And so I'm like, okay, well, I don't have any money. At that time I spent all the money that I brought from, Bogota. Because I wasn't expecting to use a ton of money. I only brought like, maybe 1,000, 2,000 bucks. Oh, that movie was gone. Maybe at 2,000, but like maybe like 1,000 bucks. So after that, I was like, I don't have any money to pay for this bag. Says, oh, we'll leave it here, and then we'll go to France. So I just took out my gym shoes, the PlayStation, PlayStation, and the clothes I had on my back. That was it. And I went to France. And so when I get to France, like I tell them, look, my bag, just my ticket to my bag, da 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 da. So they called the people, and they're like, yeah, we heard a ticking sound, so we threw a bag away. So let it be known that I had like my college graduation pictures in there. Some of them I had, like all my clothes, everything was in the bag, memories, pictures, all that stuff, and all that was gone, just like that. So I'm like, dude. So I'm in France on a trial for another 2.5 weeks. Now, France, they give me a car. Now, my agent says, oh, they could give you an automatic, it's fine. They say, all we have is sticks. Nobody has automatics. So I have a car. I can't drive it because I don't know how to drive a stick. So I had a car for like 3 weeks. It just sat there because I didn't know how to drive a stick, and nobody was willing to teach me, which was kind of funny. But um, so I'm in France. Everything's in French. Like the washing machine, all that stuff I have in my place is in French. So it breaks down. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm hand washing my clothes every single day because I have no clothes. They give me like a pair of shorts in a jersey, or a couple of things. Nothing at all really. And when I get there, they say it's just me supposedly, but no. When I get there, there's a whole nother American there, so I got to go against them every day for like the first week, and I'm just like, so I thought it was just me. Well, I didn't know. Da, da, da. I'm like, dude, why would you bring me to a team when they already have the dude at the same position as me? So literally, I have to go against him every day. So I beat him out. They send him home. I beat him out. So I have to try out after beating him out another week and a half. So we play games. I'm thinking I'm doing decent, Um, then my last game I have like 20 points, 10 rebounds. Like, all right, well, I'm about to stay. I think I'm about to stay. Now the coach was like, well, you're a good player, but we're looking for something different. So I'm already mad about this point because I'm like, dude, I don't know what I need to do, to make these teams. You know what I'm saying? So at least this time they give me money for staying for like 2.5 weeks. They give me money. Because with France, like I said, they give it was a pretty nice setup. They give you a nice apartment. They give you a nice apartment, like good stuff, food, whatever, whatever. But I didn't really it wasn't a lot. And I didn't really know how to get around. I didn't know nobody. The other American, he was cool, but he was kind of standoffish. He was doing his own thing. He had his own family. So it wasn't like he was kicking it with me. It was like he was a single dude. He had his wife and kids there. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm on my own. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, uh, they give me some money and then they send me to Paris. And so my agent was like, don't get, like, tell them to leave you in Paris, take you to this hotel. I've already, reserved you a room, right? You just gotta, like I'll pay you back or whatever, like you gotta just pay for it. And so I'm like, dude, that's all the money I got. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Just pay for it. So I'll be there in 2 days, so you won't spend a lot of money, you know. So they take me to Paris. I'm in this some hotel in Paris. Supposed to be 2 days. And so I get to this hotel. I call home. I call my pops. Like, pops, I got cut twice. I don't know what I'm gonna do. You know, what do you think I should do? He's like, man, just stick it out. See what happens. And I'm just like, Dad, I'm over here in another country. Don't know no French, nothing. He's like, just stick it out. You'll figure it out. I was in the military away from you when you were a baby. And I was like, all right, Dad. Anyway, so I called my girl at the time, my ex, but my girl at the time, I was like, thinking I'm gonna get some sympathy from her. And she was like, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? You know? Like, you gotta figure something out. You can't just come and live with me. I ain't gonna allow that. And I'm like, damn. Like, I thought you loved me. But it was a tough love I actually needed. Um, it was a tough love I actually needed. And a tough love I wanted, because, it was a tough love I wanted because, I thought like, okay, well, this is what I'm gonna do. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna see it through all the way. So after that, you know, 2 days turn to four, four turn to six, six turn to eight. I'm eating McDonald's every day because there's a McDonald's like around the corner from the hotel. So by the time, France, they have like a McDonald's where you sit down and relax and have a newspaper and chill. That's that's the difference between Europe and the States is that Europe is really slow paced. So like people come out, they go to like little coffee shops or little tea shops or whatever, like little places and just kind of sit and people watch for hours and hours on end. Like I saw people that was in McDonald's. Now I wasn't there for an hours, but like they were there, they would have a newspaper and they would just sit and let their kids play and chill after they eat. Like in France, they have this different kind of McDonald's meal. They have a meal where you get a Big Mac, fries, drink, uh, Big Mac fries, drink, and a sundae and a coffee, right? And you get all this, you know what I'm saying? So they do want you to basically be in there all day, essentially. So, you know, that was the thing. So luckily for myself, um, like he had another French client that was there with me, that was there in Paris. So like he took me out. He took me out to my first club in Europe, which it was kind of funny story about that little small story, was that I called him. I'm from California, so the club closes in California like 1:45 essentially. So like you got to be in the club at like 10 if you want to be in there for a while. So like 10 o'clock, I hit him up like, yo, you going to the club? What's up? Like it's 10 o'clock. They was like, yeah, man, just chill. So I'm like, at 11 o'clock, I text, I text him like, yo, what up? And he didn't respond. And then 12 o'clock, I'm like, man, I'm about to go to sleep. Ain't nobody. Then like 12:45, almost 1 in the morning, he calls me. I'm downstairs. I was like, what do you mean downstairs? It's 1 o'clock, ain't the club closed? He's like, man, the club don't close till 7. So, so pretty much we go to the club, you know, we have fun, but like by like 3, 4 o'clock, I'm drained, I'm exhausted, because I ain't never been out that late. So we go home or whatever, have a great time, I go home. Next day we get up, we go to a game and watch how they play in France or whatever. It wasn't nothing too crazy. Um, so my agent finally gets there. We drive to Belgium. We go to Belgium. It's about 3, 4 hours from France. I'm thinking like, like I get another tryout in Belgium. I'm thinking I'm definitely making this team. Belgium is better. Everything is cool. You know, um, there was a game, but I didn't play in it. I was just practicing. And, the coach was like, well, you're a good player, like, but we're looking for something different. You should have been in France. I'm like, yeah, that don't really help me now, but thanks. But the good thing was that coach, he got fired after he got fired after that year, and then the next year he coached in the place that I ended up at in Holland. And every time I would play against him, I would try to destroy his teams. Every time I played against him, I don't know. I don't think I ever lost to him. Like we must have played like 8, 9 times. I was like 9-0. I would average like 30, because every time I would score, I would look at him, look at him, look at him, look at him, like every time I would like because I'm like I still remember when you cut me, dog. Like I remember it got to the point where I think we sat down once and he was just like, "Why ever you look at me all every time you score?" I'm like, "Cause you cut me." He's like, "I mean, I did. I don't remember." I was like, "Yeah, when you was in Belgium, you cut me." And so every time I'm gonna see you, coach, I'm gonna bust your team's ass. Period. And so we kind of laughed about it. So okay, we'll see. Yeah, we will see. And every time, bust his ass. 30 every time. You know. Um, but back to the story. Belgium, they released me, and then I'm like, forget it. I fire my agent. I'm like, I'm about to go home, whatever. Then figure out what I'm gonna do. Maybe become a teacher. I don't know, something. Like try to go to G League, something. Maybe CBA, something. So I get a different agent that I was still in contact with. That was Dutch agent, who basically said that look, there's a job is tried in Holland for like $2,000, or was it $1,700, €1,700 a month. It came out to $2,000. And I'm like, at this point, forget it. I'll take it. So I went with that. I fired that agent, fired my agent, and then I went with this agent. And then somebody from the team just picked me up from my place, and we drove to Holland. And I remember that week I was like practicing hard, playing hard. We played the eventual champions of the entire league, and I remember that game like I jammed my finger got popped out of place like in the first 5 minutes, and they had to pop it back in or whatever. Like I had to wear like the double taped up finger like Kobe and stuff. And I'm like, forget it. Well, fuck, it doesn't really matter. I'm hooping now. So um I remember that, and in that game, like, you know, we lost by like 20, but I had like 30. I was shooting it every time I got it. I was just being aggressive, shooting it. And, every time I got it pretty much. So I ended up like with 30 points, even though we lost by 20. And I didn't really care. So I was like, all right, well, I'm hooping. So, after the game, I talked to the coach and I told him, Coach, I appreciate you for letting me try out, because I'm thinking the worst. We just lost by 30, or 20. And, even though I score a lot of points, I'm like, you're going to cut me anyway, so forget it. And he was like, I said, thank you, coach. And he was like, no, Travis, you're going to keep you. I was like, wait, what? You're going to keep me? What? And so pretty much they kept me. And, I was so shocked. I was like, oh, okay, all right. And so, pretty much the team kind of helped me out. The agent sent me, like he sent me some stuff, like, some shorts and sweats, and, jacket, whatever the case was, just some stuff just to kind of have. And like I said, when I got back home to the States for Christmas break, then I came back and brought, more stuff. But yeah, I remember that like it was nothing. Like that was like the year, what I'm saying? That was a hell of a first year. Now, what I'm saying? Like just to get to that point. Now in Holland was really, really slow. People ride bikes. That's why people are longer and skinnier in Holland, because they ride bikes. The food portions when you go out, very, very smaller. Like everything, a large out there is a medium out here. Like there is no super size and all that stuff how we have here, and like large, extra large pizzas and all that there. There's none of that. In Europe, like I said, like they ride like old 60 granny bikes. Like even people who are rich, they ride little granny bikes, or they walk, like so. we had a car that we shared between us, me and the other American that was there. Shout out to Pierre. Me and the other American that was there. Well, we shared a car, and we had like a little 2 bedroom apartment together that we shared. So that's why I kind of learned. I didn't learn how to cook, but I ate fast food pretty much every day. I ate like there was a little Chinese food spot that I ate every day, and they had like a George Foreman grill type of thing where it was like called a toasty maker. So that's what I ate. Like it'd be bread, ham, cheese, butter on both sides, smash it, you know, like that. When you don't know how to cook, you just surviving. So I was eating that for lunch, every day or breakfast or whatever. And for dinner, I was getting that. So if I wanted to switch things up, I would switch things up with like Burger King or like they had like McDonald's, or I didn't really eat McDonald's. We ate it as a team after road trips, or like Burger King or something else, chicken like chicken spot. So over there, like I said, it's real slow. They gave us bikes too. They gave us bikes. The money wasn't nothing, but it was just more the experience of hooping in Holland. It was really just hooping and hollering, you know. And it gave me I thank that coach to my day, to this day, like giving me my shot. Without him, there wouldn't be no overseas Travis Reed. I wouldn't have played overseas 10 years, because he gave me the shot that year. And so like that year, like I said, I didn't really make a lot of money, but I gained a name in that country. I was what they call statistical player of the year, which is like basically like offensive player of the year in football. I averaged like, 20 points. I was the only person averaged like 20 points and 10 rebounds. And so like even though we finished in like fourth place, we finished in fourth place and we went to the semifinals and lost to the eventual champions. Um, we were a situation where, I had a wonderful, great time. I was in the city of Dunboss, you know. Like I said, like there was a couple old NBA pros, like the vet person that was there was a dude named Terrence Stansberry. People know him as he created the Statue of Liberty dunk in the NBA back in like 85, 86. Super athletic. He was like 42 and that was his last stop in Holland. We're still cool. I still talk to him. Real cool dude. Real just like he would on every Saturday we would go to the same club as him. Me and my best friend Billy Knight, God rest his soul. We would go to the same club with him, and he would just buy us drinks and tell us about stories of Mike Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, all these people that he played against in the '80s, because he was in the NBA. So we were like, man, that's crazy. So it was just really, really just cool. As far as like the competition of Holland, it was great competition. My first year, it was a lot of Americans, so you got to see the Americans from just all over. Now, the crazy story about that year was my boy Billy was in France. He was in France too, and he's got released, and he was in France. I was like, dog, take the train down. At least you got a ticket. You could fly that anywhere. And so like if like just come out and stay with me for a couple weeks, man. And so he flew. He took the train from France like 3-4 hours to get to me. And so I was like, bro, like circumstances had it where the American on my team, he had just left because he had a family emergency at home and he never came back. And it was in search of American. I was like, well, I got my boy, my best friend, staying with me. You could try him out, coach. So tried him out. We had a couple scrimmage games that week, and for like a week or two, and then like he made the team. And I don't think that'll ever like happen where like you bring a best friend of somebody, to the team. So I was like, man, I was so happy. That was one of my funnest years because it was me and my best friend hooping. We knew how each other played. We was loving each other, like just having a blast. And so like my first year, like I said, it was like my least stressful year as far as money and expectation because whatever I did, it was beyond because I was making $2,000 a month. So, I remember when my ex came down and I gave her my money and she put it all in the bank, it was like $7,000 or whatever the case was. When she came, by the time she came back, I didn't, I made about $9,000 for the whole year. So it wasn't really like I made any money. By the time the summer ended, I was broke. So, and I was ready to go. I was ready to sign to my next contract. I was ready. But we're gonna get back to that on the next episode of my first years overseas, my first six, which was my, basically my first six of healthy years. So, but about the first year was the longest individual year, because it was like, I transferred team to team to team to team. But the next year, I'll tell you the experience of how to deal from going from making no money to dealing how to make some money to dealing how to make, with a lot of money. Um, and so I just want to give you my journey because people have been asking me about it, talk about it. So that's why I did it. And plus, I'm going to get some other people to talk about it. Um, like my big brother, Mike Batiste, who just got, one of the top 25 greatest greatest American players ever in the history of the EuroLeague. So got to get him on the show to talk about his experience in the Euro and all that, because that's obviously the number two league compared to the NBA in the world. So, but yeah, Holland, like I said, it was a lot of good players. I mean, here's what happens in Holland. People don't know this. Where like say a team has a budget of 150,000 for the year. Now, an agent, what he can do is like either do two things. Maybe the three, four things really, but like say like two big things. Two things would be like, okay, we're gonna split it in between two. We can go just one American, one also American for 150,000. Usually that's never the case. But let's just say they split it in between two Americans. Like they both getting one getting 80, one getting 70, or one getting 75, or whatever the case is. They both split it between the two. But most agents, what they do is like, okay, we're gonna bring five Americans in and give them 30. And so like you're like, man, like 30 is better than zero because I don't want to be sitting here because you start panicking. Here's what happens like when you're overseas. The season starts in October or late September, October, whatever the case is. Now, in August, you're not tripping if you don't have a job because you don't want to go in August anyway, even though every team wants to bring you back in August to see if you're in shape. So if they see if you're not in shape, they can cut you and move on to the next thing, right? So you don't want that. You want to get there in September, sometime in September, then you get in shape or whatever, or you, at least you've been working out, you're in some shape. For me, I had a crazy coach, so I had to get in shape. We'll get into that a little bit later on the next episode, but um, yeah. So I came in, I didn't get to that part of Holland until because of all the situations I was in. I didn't get there till like almost November, and I had been overseas since like September, early September, like the first week, like right after Labor Day and right before it was like September 2nd or something. So I didn't get to Holland till like almost November. It was essentially like November 1st. So it was just a situation where like you just had to learn the situation, and like I was a part of that money. So like when you get to September, you're like, man, I'm panicking. So I just take this, forget it. I'm gonna just take this 30,000 because I don't want to miss out on not making no money all the way to December. And that's how they do it in the job field. Because unless you got like 100,000, 75,000, 50,000 stacked, and you ain't spending no money, like you just you can wait. You can go to another country, take a little smaller, short term deal. But usually, what happens is, you panic and you just take the deal that the agent, because when the agent has a deal for you, he call you, blow your phone up like every day, like, yo, I got this deal, 7,000, 8,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever. You've been waiting for 15. He ain't call you about that. You can't even contact him. You can't even get in contact with him. When he has a deal for you, he call you every day. So, like I said, and that's how they be splitting up that 30,000. And then like the overseas team look like a JC team because it got five Americans on it, all making 30,000. And that happens a lot in Holland because it's unlimited Americans. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But all right, want to say thank y'all for listening to A Athlete Journey. Like I said, we're rebranding. That's why I'm not wearing an Athlete Journey shirt. I'm rebranding. I got my T Reed, keep growing, keep grinding shirt on. Um, definitely want to let y'all know, like the website is, under construction, is almost there. It is like really like 70% done. That's coming. So that'll have all, like, my episodes where you can find me on YouTube, speaking engagements, whatever. All my information is going to be on that one website. You know, even like counseling and learning, different things. So learning how to deal with overseas life and, like, it's going to be a bunch of different stuff on there. Trust me. Public speaking and everything. Like anything that you can think of is going to be on the website. Even merch, even my new merch. Because now I do own the rights to A Athlete's Journey, so I have to buy the copyrights of it too. So yeah. So things is moving over here on this side. Like I said, keep listening, keep sharing, keep subscribing to the channel, and subscribe to the show. And like I said, if you're looking for more content, go to my my YouTube channel, Travis Reed, but it's A Athlete's Journey. It's posted on my follow me on Instagram, and like I said, it's posted on Instagram and Facebook. Um, and like I said, you click the link or copy the link, put it in, and like I said, it'll show my YouTube channel. So like you can subscribe and become, subscribing and like become like become a value member and all that too. So like I said, appreciate y'all. Talk to y'all later. Like I said, season two, or yeah, season two of my first year overseas, or my first years overseas, coming up next week. Peace.